Hello there, good evening, welcome back to Celtic World Order. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt. It's a pleasure to welcome you back for a wee short pre-match show. Sporting Lisbon versus Celtic, the friendly games continue for this pre-season, and of course tonight you've got to say is going to be the first that is properly of any real standard of competition, and that will reflect, of course, we've got to get the business done. Folk weren't too enamoured with what they saw in the previous two, particularly that game against Australia, where quite a bunch of the first team starters stroke even the bench managed to get themselves on the field and didn't really do it, as they felt a disappointing defeat there. However, it's all changed because as we play Sporting Lisbon, as I say, is a completely different kettle of fish, a completely different proposition. It looks as if, as we'd expect, that the manager and certainly the coaching staff are taking this one a lot more seriously. It looks a lot more like something that would resemble at least a starting lineup, albeit the fact that there is still glaring omissions that are there, things that we need, new signings that need to be brought in, positions that need to be addressed. So we're going to have a wee quick look at it because kickoff is right around the corner. Welcome back to the channel. Just as we always say, if you're a continued supporter, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. If you're new, it's a warm welcome yourself. But what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. It costs you absolutely nothing to do it. It just helps this channel grow. We're trucking on. We're nearly at the 2,000 mark, and we'd love to break that by the time the new season comes around. So if you can help us out, lovely stuff. If you like it, get a thumbs up, share it, tell people. You know the score by now. And of course, most importantly, elsewhere, our socials, X, the CW Pod 1888, and our TikTok, Blue Sky, Spotify on the move. So let's get on about it. Celtic versus Sporting Lisbon. If you've not seen it already by now, the team lineup is out, and that is how we are shaping up. As I said, something that looks a hell of a lot more familiar to what you would expect a quote-unquote starting 11 that we've got. It's pretty much near enough a full-strength team for what the manager has at his disposal. Schmeichel coming back in, that Duan experiment, we all knew that he was nothing more than a wee stopgap. He was a admin signing. He was the new DG in place of the outgoing Baniak, of course. We got to see Sanassalo, which was nice, but Schmeichel is very much the man who's going to be the number one moving forward there. I'm going to have a wee look at the back line. Ralston, Murray, Scales and Tierney. The one glaring omission there for me is, as much as I think that we should be giving guys like Murray a run out in the team, I would have liked to have seen Austin Trusty start. Now, as a friendly, as we all know, there's going to be changes. We'll probably get a different team in the second half. But I think that as the start of the new season begins to creep up upon us, that we really need to be thinking about getting Trusty in, because at this moment in time, there's a lot of questions over that centre-back position. CCV, it's all went a wee bit quiet. Talk of an injury, talk of going under the knife again on that knee. We've not had real clarity there. So as we look forward at the opening of the season, as we look towards that Champions League qualifier, people are rightly nervous about that. Inamura came in, he impressed. He could well be the surprise package, but as I said, Trusty is the quote established guy. He's the guy that we paid the big bucks for, and you would have at least expected him to go in there and start, because you've got to say, no disrespect to Murray, but Scales and Trusty, that's kind of, I guess, what you're going to be looking at. That's what you would expect from what's there, unless Celtic pull a surprise one out and they give us something new. Midfield writes itself, doesn't it? McGregor anchoring it. Nygren, good to see him back in there. I liked what I saw against Australia. Let's hope he can kick that on. James Forrest, likewise, really impressed with James Forrest's wee period in the last friendly there, looking sharp, looking lively. And I think if we can keep him fit, that he's going to be very instrumental in the early stages. At least we know we're looking at Balakwisha. Guys like Ater could still happen, but it's nice to see James Forrest getting himself up to speed. And of course, we have Maeda and we have Ida in there. So when you look at it, yes, it's going to be a wee bit of changing around. Ida will go through the middle. You'll have Forrest out there on the wing. You'll have Maeda out in the wing. And of course, your midfield will be Nygren, Hatate and McGregor. You've probably got to say there, looking at that probably you're going to have Nygren in a more central position, maybe in that sort of 10 as we expected. Definitely worthwhile seeing what he's got to prove and move him around that midfield. That's good. Arnott Engels obviously the one to make way for it. That's never a bad thing. you've got the guys, you need to see what they've got and give them. And Sporting Lisbon will, of course, be a far sterner test. It's good to see there's a few he's in there. What's your thoughts on this? Anything you want to share in, you want to discuss? Fire in, we'll try and get them out there. We're obviously going to try and squeeze out a wee quick discussion because it is right upon us, but just wanted to have a wee look at this one. In terms of elsewhere, of course, as I just says, as we done last night with Terry, there's plenty to be talking about in terms of what we need. I think that's abundantly clear. We got another announcement today, didn't we? We got another announcement, and yep, it was another top for you to all buy. So again, the point remains from last night. The discontent, that frustration is there. That's now in 2 days. We've had, an away top, the Love United's top, and we've had a training range released. Still no sign of those players on the horizon. However, there has been a wee bit of chat around that, and that has been positive because Kawasaki Frontale, as we all knew, we spoke about it last night, Shin Yamada is all but on his way, and the club, they confirmed that as much. They announced that he'd played his last game for him. So, indeed, Shin Yamada, in a deal that's said to be around about the £1.5 million mark, he will be jetting in, as they like to say, making it sound all fancy. He'll be in soon. He'll be a part of that squad, and we may well get to see him as early as the game against Newcastle at Celtic Park. That would be nice. That would be positive, wouldn't it? Elsewhere, as we say, there's plenty of guys that we need, plenty of positions that we need. The Balikwisha thing, again, I'm fed up at. You're probably fed up at. This one seems like it has been nothing more than it's this year's drama, isn't it? It's this season's dragged out, long, boring story that just keeps on crawling along. The Balikwisha thing, reports there, so we're again saying that one looked, again, close, very close, but we've heard this, monitoring the situation, interested in all the buzzwords. It's like links bingo. Pick whatever term that takes your fancy, use that, and it's probably applied to us. In terms of other ones, there was one that actually propped up again, and I really don't know how you think about this one. Let us know, because when we spoke about the Odsonne Edouard thing last night, we spoke about that. We said, yeah, is it lazy? Does it level us up? But it is going back the way. Well, a blast from recent past. Another name get chucked in, and I really don't like the sounds of it. It's, of course, Jeffrey Schlupp. Jeffrey Schlupp is meant to be back in the mix, where Celtic are monitoring the situation, as they like to say. Why are we monitoring the situation? Well, because he costs us the square root of, excuse my French, fuck all. He is free, 100% free, and Celtic like to take a freebie. Of course, this report also goes on to say that he wouldn't be short of suitors, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't. There's meant to be interest in him down in England, in and around about the Championship, and of course, further afield as well. Likewise, you're more than likely going to get these guys could go and pick up a nice, tidy profit, a nice, tidy wage packet in the likes of Saudi Arabia or the MLS, but Celtic are meant to be interested in him. How would you feel about big Jeffrey Schlupp bringing his body back into the mix? Me, not so much. I think that he is definitely a guy who, he's getting on in his years. He still looks mobile, he still looks fit, and he showed in 1 or 2 games what he had. I thought, there was points where you went, absolutely, sign him up right now. But for one reason or another, he just dropped off, did Jeffrey Schlupp. So would I buy into the fact that if we brought him back on a permanent, that we would see something of a shift in his attitude? Would we get more out of him? It remains to be seen. I think if we're looking at that left-back position or utility players, he definitely ticks a box in those respects. I am not going to rewrite history. As I said, I thought he started a house on fire, and I thought that, and I agree with Paul, not for me. I am very much unsettled, in the same way Martin, he's saying the same thing about him. It's a no from Martin K with regards to Jeffrey Schlupp. Listen, I hear you. As I say, I'm just looking at it and thinking it's one of these things. Yeah, as a left back, it wasn't necessarily his position at Palace. You're right there, Ian. As I say, he's kind of utilitarian, maybe more of a sort of holding, defensive, robust midfielder that can drop back. He can be deployed at left back, he can be deployed at the centre defence. Now, again, it is, generally speaking, I want to move forward. I want to do something fresh. I want new ideas, the likes of Flavio Nazinho. If there's any legs legs in that one. That's definitely one that I would be pursuing. And as we said last night, it's not really to look at Nazinho and think he's a backup to Kieran Tierney, because we all know that with Kieran Tierney's injury problems, I'm not saying that he's ridden and he will be out, but because of that, we need to manage Kieran Tierney. And by that, that's rotating that position. You're not want to go and play him on one of those drastic plastic pitches, are you? Nor are you want to go and play him in a game where you know that it's going to be just hammer throw central. So it would be good to have someone who could complement the position and that we could rotate out in and out. And I think Flavio Nazinho, for me, definitely looks more like the kind of candidate that for that left side of defence that can even adapt and move a wee bit forward. That would be the guy that I would want to, exactly, a job share, Ian. That's the way. That's a great way of putting it. I like that. I'm stealing that one. But yes, I think that Nazinho would be the guy that I'd be looking at there. However, just for the balance of fairness, as much as I am not mad about the Jeffrey Schlupp thing, if we had, and it's a big if we went and got a quality left back, the likes of Nazinho, and then you bring in Jeffrey Schlupp, I'm not going to be too fussed about it. I'm not going to lose any sleep, and I'm not going to be angry. What would anger me is if you brought in Jeffrey Schlupp, because we know the way the Celtic board think. They would say, well, you're all right there. You've got cover. You know, you've got maybe Inamura might change some managers' decisions this pre-season. The bloke can say, well, you get him. You've got Trusty, you've got Scales. Scales can move over to the left. You've got Kieran Tierney, and you've got Jeffrey. So what else do you need? But why do you want more? That's the big worry for me. If we got someone in there and it was going to be the likes, as I say, off Flavio Nazinho, then and then only, I wouldn't be too bored about Jeffrey Schlupp. But again, I will say at the right price. He's going to want a hefty wage. I believe it was on about 80 grand or something, maybe even more at Palace. And my understanding of that deal when he was in was the fact that he was going to be on something around about half that wage that Celtic were covering for him. He's not worth that kind of money. Let's get real here. Yes, 30 grand, 40 grand, whatever, is chump change to Celtic. These are the kind of wages that we should be paying. And I agree that getting in, I've said before, running bills, guys that are, you know, experienced, have come for the Premiership, maybe guys that are on the periphery. I used the example a million times, the likes of Scott Sinclair-esque guy, even to an extent, Casper Schmeichel. I don't mind getting in these running bills and paying them a decent wage. But Jeffrey Schlupp, for me, doesn't tick that box. I think that there's still life left in him, but no, I don't think he's a guy that I would be wanting to put in any money. And I agree, you know, it is speculation, Big Rab. It is. Is he going to be coming? Is it drumming up interest? Well, that's the problem with Celtic, isn't it? People say that about the Edwards situation as well. I think that whenever we are a club like Celtic, it's an easy link, isn't it? They've been there previously. Let's throw their name in the mix because other teams might jump up and go, well, they've technically got a leg up on you because he's already been there, and that gives you a wee bit of familiarity where they know what to expect. So it's kind of creates a wee bit of urgency. It's just clever bullshit by agents and the likes. But yeah, I don't expect Schlupp to happen, so fear not. I do not expect that one to happen. But it's worth mentioning because it popped up, and I'm sure it gave a lot of people a bit of the fear. It certainly struck a wee bit of fear into me, as I say, because I don't want us to pivot the eyes on the prize, something that looks good, like under 20s Portuguese internationalist and Flavio Nazinho, who's, you know, at the ripe age of 21 with plenty of growing room to then pivot to somebody like Jeffrey Schlupp, who's in his winding down years. And as I say, last season on him, it was diminished return. Started off all right and faded away. No. In terms of other guys who are no, you might have seen again, and this sent Celtic Twitter a bit wild. There was a misinterpreted, and I believe it was a misinterpreted report around in the lesser seen Louis Palma, but it was a Honduran social media account, relatively small, following by, you know, respects of media, and they had suggested that he was going to be featuring for Celtic. Why was he going to be featuring for Celtic? Because, again, poor language translation. He had been called up to our pre-season. I don't think that's called up. That's just returning to parent club, isn't it? But yeah, a lot of people were starting to get worried where they were saying it looks as if, according to this article, the way it had been translated, that he was going to be featuring for Celtic. don't worry yourself about that one. Louis Palma, I don't think magicians could get that guy into the actual squad here for Celtic. But let's have a wee look at it, and you can even see there, look, he's not even away with the team. He's not even part of this. He's not even featuring. So don't worry yourself there. But what are the options for the bench tonight? As it says, Trusty Yang, another guy. Let us know what you think of Yang, because interest coming up for him, apparently from in Europe, but also closer to home. Norwich, is it time to turn the screw on Norwich? Is it time to give them a taste of their own medicine and try and extract as much money as we possibly can for them? Or are you just happy to clean your nose on Yang and move him on? Or are you even part of the Yang gang? Do you want to keep him on? What's your thoughts on Yang? Is he one that with the potential thin, dare I say it, winger crisis we have to keep around? Or shift him on and spend the money elsewhere? Of course, another man that fits that bill on that bench is Marco Tilio. Again, the lesser seen. He came back over. He had his problems, of course, over at Melbourne City. A wee bit homesick. He went back out there on loan. But now they are wanting to get him back. Marco Tilio, you would be cleaning your nose on that. You'd be losing money on it. Would you be happy with that? And of course, there's more periphery players potentially going out there as well, in the form of the Quan artist. He's another guy that is drumming up a wee bit of sort of interest. And I feel that Quan, Tilio, Yang, yes, out the three of those, Yang's the most useful, the most usable player. But do I think he is ready for Celtic at this moment in time? Is he the answer crisis in that winging position or not? No, I don't think he is. And I think if we can get anything for Yang above or similar to what we paid, I'm not going to lose any sleep about it. The fact of the matter is we need guys who are pretty much ready to go, that can drop in. And yes, we saw a wee bit of a decent patch in Yang at the tail end of last season. But for me, you've really got to say that, yeah, you can't hang your hat on him. Do I want to be looking at potential, if we get in the Champions League, hopefully a bench when we need a player to turn a game, and looking at Yang? No disrespect, I don't know. So I would be happy to get him out there. Paddy being optimistic, 9 million, a wee taste of the medicine for Norwich there. But I certainly do not believe that would be the case. That would be the case. I think would be maybe at best, because it's Norwich, I think maybe about 3.5 million, you'd be roughly cleaning your nose. Small, tiny profit on top. Now, I would take that for Yang. I think that money could be reinvested elsewhere. Of course, if we are looking at the sort of impending arrival of Balikwisha, that eases things up again. We know that we're not going to get to see Jota until at least the start of 2026. So we've been braced for that one. But yeah, we need the options. Balikwisha should be a good start, of course, and we take it from there. Other links in terms of players, it's hard and it remains to be seen. Palma, seen some questions there coming around about Palma. I don't even know what a Lewis Palma's worth. I'm not even going to sit here and lie. He went to Olympiacos and he couldn't win himself a move. So he is pretty much at this moment in purgatory. There's no other way of putting it. He is in footballing purgatory. Will he feature at any point between now and the season opening up? And perhaps, in that game against Newcastle, I wouldn't hold my breath. I really would not hold my breath. Do I even see him getting into a squad for the opening of the season? Honestly, no. And that in itself creates a conundrum. It creates a problem, because if you don't have a guy who's playing, he's no fit, he's not getting chances, it makes him a hell of a lot harder to sell. Any thoughts on these guys? Let us know. What do you think about it? His bollock washer says, guys like that. I've seen that one enough times. I love the nicknames that folk want to come out with. Balikwisha, as Big Terry said last night, it's funny seeing people trip over some of these names. But yeah, I think that Balikwisha coming in would spell the end, at least for one, maybe two. I think guys like Tilio, Yang, they are just filler at this moment in time. Palma, he is also just filler. The problem there being is the outlay, but sometimes these things happen. For every guy that you can buy for 1 million, 2 million, whatever, get them to play, hit the ground and make a tidy profit on it. Sometimes there is just guys that you have to suck it up. You need to take the loss and cut your losses. And I say this a million times over. People say, well, we spent 3.5 million for him. Why would we accept 1 million? Well, think about it. If he's not going to be sold, you're still going to be paying him week in, week out. And the longer you keep him on the books, it's going to cost you that money. That's why McCarthy being the prime example, I could never understand why Celtic just didn't negotiate a severance with him. I'm just plucking numbers, but if you've got a guy with 2 years, 2.5 years left on a contract and you're paying them maybe something like 20 grand a week or whatever it is, you could do the quick maths and say, well, between now and the end of his contract, it's going to cost us, again, I'm not doing the sums, I'm just been talking for general, that's going to cost us £1.5 million on wages. Yeah, during that period, someone might come along and want to take him, but if you know he's not going to feature, if he's going to be rotting in the B team or not even getting anywhere near the B team or your squad, cut the losses. Pay at least a portion of that off to make them disappear. That's one thing that Celtic have been horrendous at doing over the many seasons. Celtic need to start being ruthless, and I think that the clean-up of the deadwood in this squad is definitely something that we really need to start getting on board with. Yes, there'll be guys that we can move on, and there is people there that we have moved on. Lagerbielke, for example, good, get that one done. A guy who should have been getting moved on, completely up in the air, of course, now, Stephen Welsh, because his injury, his reoccurring shoulder injury has happened once again. This is why we just need to try and offload these guys. We cannot keep going on the merry-go-round and putting these guys out on loan, hoping that something turns and then them getting around and seeing that. But that's the thing. Paddy's saying it's lovely to see a stadium full hoops. Absolutely. It's going to be a good game tonight. You know, the Sporting Lisbon hoops against Celtic, the original hoops, in my opinion, that's the one there. Brilliant to see. It's going to be a good-willed match, but it's also going to be a competitive match. And I think that is very important for this squad to give us something, because, yes, as many are saying, it is so early on. However, we have got to be mindful. Yes, friendlies, pre-season, is about getting minutes in the legs, getting folk up to speed, but at the same time, you still want to see something positive and give you something to shout about. We're not going to be like the blue side of town that like to win that pre-season cup. You know, that's been the way for years and years and years. But I've had a fantastic pre-season. There'll be garbage in the season, and we've been sometimes quite the opposite. Garbage in the pre-season, then brilliant in the season. No, I get that. I totally understand. It's not hitting the panic button. There's plenty of time here. But I think we'd be lying to ourselves if we said that just look at that squad there, even look at that starting side there, even look at that bench. Would you be comfortable going into the opening 4 games of the new season? There's some tough games in there. St Mirren, Aberdeen, Rangers. Would you be happy with that sitting there? Would you be happy going into the Champions League qualifier? You know, opponents unknown as of yet. We know there is some favourable ones, but there are also still some banana skins in there. There's never an easy game, particularly when it's a straight shootout. It is one game. It's 2 legs, one game for a qualifier. The stakes are so high. Would you be happy with what I've just shown you there? Give or take 1 or 2 extra being added in. That is the concern. That's where it's not hitting the panic button. It is being realistic. Now, of course, in Shin Yamada, if he comes in, it gives you another option. If Balakwisha comes in, yes, adds a bit more quality, but those 2 players would be the absolute bare minimum that I would expect to be coming in. Celtic need to be looking at the more pressing positions, particularly with the Champions League qualifier coming up. And dare I say it as well, the start of the season, we need good quality centre-half cover. Now, Tierney is the good one there. He is the utilitarian guy that we've got. But yeah, he can, and he's been brought in to play at left back, but he can also play left-sided in a back 4. But then that begs the question, well, who would take up that mantle at left back? Could Inamura, turn the head of Brendan Rodgers? He came in as a guy who was like, who is this guy? No, he's nothing to do with us. He's not going to be a starter. But he's looked pretty good, let's be honest. Early days, but he's looked pretty good. And if he comes on against a Sporting Lisbon team, which is going to be a level up again, puts in a good shift, he could change minds, gets a wee bit of game time against Newcastle, change minds. Now, with Inamura, we've said that we're going to loan him out, but he's definitely not going to get loaned out until at least right at the end of the transfer window. So that does give us, with him, at least a wee bit of time. It gives us a bit of time to get things moving with him. It gives him tonight, gives him Newcastle, and then once the actual league games come on, whether you are throwing him right in and starting him, or you rotate him in and you give him some game time in a properly competitive match, where that's your typical 70-minute substitutions, and you bring him on, you introduce him, hopefully at a time when we're winning, it might change the manager's thoughts, but at least there is time with him to make a decision. We don't need to be hasty with him, but at the same time, we don't want to be hoping that his early signs continue on and that he's a banker to use. Celtic should be get out there looking at that centre-half position, looking at the fact that Lagerbielke's moved on, looking at the fact that Nawrocki's moved on, Welsh, unavailable, probably may move on if he gets fit. That's a glaring hole. That is something that we need to get addressed. And actually, it came around whenever Scales was interviewed, and they pretty much asked him, and it alluded to the fact that at least suggestions that Celtic could be looking at a centre-half. There's been many names flying about. Of course, the young chap from Red Star was the main one. There was a few other names as well, out of France and the likes, but nothing has been completely solid. It's all went a wee bit quiet there. When Scales was asked, he gave the standard chat about, I'm not overly concerned about my position. It's all about me working hard and making sure I can do the best for me, get my position in the team, but I am at a big club. It's no surprise. It is what big clubs do. It wouldn't be a surprise for us to go and sign at least one player for every position, because that is, as he says, what big clubs do. So maybe he knows, maybe the squad know that there are positions that we're looking at. Maybe that is just a wee sort of, clue to the fact that Celtic are looking at it, and these guys who are in situ at the moment know that and know they need to show more, know they need to start proving a point, know they need to up their game. But that is definitely the first place that I'd be looking at. Left back, we need a back up there. Centre half, we need a back up there. I have said it, I've championed it for ages. Right back, Ralston plays tonight. He's an ample deputy for the domestic stuff. But let's be honest again, Alistair Johnston hasn't really been pushed. It would be good to see another high-quality left back. If we're looking at Flavio Nazinho, is going to be the guy that's going to be coming in there. That's great. That's a start. And Amura, that gives you a potential 3 options there. That would be absolutely perfect. Why can't we mirror that on the opposite side? Have Johnson, Ralston, and another, and then that kind of takes care of the centre half position. Carter Vickers comes back, Trusty, not so mad on it. Scales and one other. It suddenly starts to look a lot more healthy, doesn't it? And that means that we can start to address the other positions. We'll have Yamada, we'll have Maeda as an option, we'll have Ida, and of course, we'll have Osmond, 4. But again, I still want one other proper, bona fide bit of quality in that up front position. I think to that end, as much as I'd love it to be, I said it last night, I'll repeat it again, that's why the links to the likes of French Eddie, again, no matter what you think about it, if the price was right, if the deal was right, with 1 year left on his position, on his contract, if you could get him in, would I take him? Yeah, I probably would, because I know in my heart of hearts that Celtic aren't going to go out and do what we thought they'd do. Go and get a name who we have been linked with or we've never heard of and pull out of thin air the likes of Christegarden or someone else that's going to be, 9, 10, 11 million. I do not see Celtic doing it. So to that end, if they were cheaping out or taking a step back and bringing in an Edouard who does have quality, yes, his form hasn't been great since he's moved to England, but you cannot doubt that he would bring instant quality. And if he could be brought back up to speed, he would quite comfortably be the best of the strikers that we'd have at our disposal, if not at least second best, depending on how you want to look at that. Bold words, but I genuinely believe that. And as I says, if that's Celtic's version of cheaping out to get in quality, the guy's still young, 27. Plenty of years in him, plenty of times for a second coming, pun fully intended there with the Stone Roses link, for Edouard to come back. So as much as I want us to evolve and do new things, I am realistic that we're already looking quite bloated, but not bloated with what I would consider to be bona fide quality, Champions League, European quality there. I think Ida is working on it. Hopefully it's a good pre-season. I've said that. He could turn that corner. Maeda, I think, is there. Osmond and Shin Yamada, raw, untested, that remains to be seen. But bringing in Edouard, it would just bring it up a level, wouldn't it? It would be like back to when we had Maeda, Kyogo and Ida. You suddenly start to feel a wee bit better about things. I think that needs to take care of itself. In the midfield, yep, we've already spoke about it. We need those winger options, but we also need that marauding defensive number 6 in there. Anyway, just wanted to pop up. Good crowd there. Good to see a healthy number of you all taking part and getting involved. And thanks for watching it. We will come back. I'm aiming to get myself back on here later tonight, hopefully joined by my bearded and balded brother, Paddy Boy, to talk about hopefully a good game, hopefully a result. I really, really hope the game's about to kick off. Everybody's chomping at the bit to get themselves in there. So listen, we'll catch you back to talk about that game once it's all over. So enjoy the game. Take care of yourself. God bless. And as always, hail, hail. See you soon and take care. Bye-bye.